it changes a lot how you use these tools. The tools are still there, and I think now we have to think about, okay, what are we using each channel for, and then what's the end goal? I think I've been guilty of this a lot as well, of knowing that I can always kind of cold target people, so I haven't been spending as much time at the bottom of my funnel or the middle of my funnel. I haven't spent as much time nurturing people that are already part of my ecosystem and building them into lists that I can then depend on as first party contacts. And I think that's going to be the biggest change. Now you're going to have to focus on the people that are already in your CRM and nurture them. That's going to be the drive here. You can't keep going to the cold lists and the cold advertising, because it's going to be, well, less. You can have less reporting on it, and you're not going to be targeting as well as you were before.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Over a Pint, the podcast that puts the focus on the fast-paced world of marketing and told through the eyes of us industry veterans. There's no theory here. This is real-world practical experience, and underline that today, guys, for this topic. Joining me, as always, President of Celtic Advertising, Mr. BrianM, partner and Vice President of Celtic Advertising, Kurt Lingle, and myself, Director of New Business Development over at Acedia, Pat McGovern. Guys, this is a big show today. It's, first of all, it's episode number 25, right? Which is
fantastic.
This is great. This is a big milestone for us. So there's that. Next, this is the first time we've got returning guests. Back in episode 9, we had Paul and Jason from Web Presence Digital, an agency in the UK, with us. Today we have Jason, and he is being joined by Astra Newton. This is going to be an interesting show. The topic is iOS 14. It's a big deal in the digital space. Jason and Astra are going to break this down for us. What's going on? What's happening? What marketers need to know about it? And it's also very relevant because today, guys, Apple's introducing their new iPhone. I'm sure they're going to make more a mention of this new privacy and security as they roll out their new product. So very timely, very relevant. We're anxious to get into all this. But guys, what do? We go around the horn. We got to find out what we're having to drink today. We're going to start it with Astra. What do you got? What do you put?
Ooh, the pressure's on. So I tried to find a local beer. I'm from the north of England. Jason's down south. And this is from a little Brighton brewery, which is one of the more southernly areas. So it's a mango sour, and I realised it's 7.4%. So
hello.
I'll be sleeping at the end of that, huh?
My knowledge later on, the further down I get.
Excellent. That sounds fun. Mr. Morton.
Yeah, I've gone for it's quite simply called a crisp craft lager, but it's from Norfolk, which is where my girlfriend's from. So I went for it. That's why it kind of caught my eye. And goes well with goat's cheese. That's all I can really say about it. I haven't got any goat's cheese.
Is that what it says on the back?
Or King prawns, but that's what it would be paired with, apparently. So yeah, that's my beer. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Mr. Lingle.
You know, I am drinking a Belgian Imperial Stout from a local brewery just west of Milwaukee. It's Ray's Grain Brewing Company. I like what they're doing out there. They do a good beer. This one in particular is 9.6. So, and keep in mind,
going to need a nap after this.
Yeah, keep in mind that we're a little behind you. What is it, like maybe not even noon? So let's see how the rest of the day goes for me, though. Cheers. Great having both of you on the program.
Yeah.
Brian, what are you knocking back?
I got a little something. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, but it's called Starbucks. I don't know if you've heard that over in England. It's pretty exclusive to the U.S. in our neck of the woods, but something pretty special here. It is still morning, so I'm on my coffee still.
Still knocking back coffee. And guys, I'm having from a local brewery here in southeastern Wisconsin, New Glarus Spotted Cow. This is a big one, a big brewery here. They put out a lot of good stuff. Spotted Cow is probably one of their more, what would you say, guys, mainline type of lagers, right, that they have?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, great stuff. So let's get into this. iOS 14, Jason, Astra, give us the lowdown. Start us off for those who are listening who are like, okay, yeah, I kind of heard about this. What does this all mean? Start breaking it down for us, right? What is all this about?
Okay, I can start if you like, because I can tell you how it became an issue. So there was we started looking at this a year ago. I knew that this was coming, and I knew that it changed how we had to look at how we advertise. Data protection has always been something that I know is coming and is going to get more and more restrictive. But I also knew that it was only going to happen in September 2021, and I'm not like Jeff Bezos, who deals in like the next 3 years away. I'm dealing in the now. I'm like barely managing with the next 2 weeks, so yeah. I'm not thinking about it back then, but I knew it was coming. And then in May of 2021, this year, we started getting emails and phone calls from our partner agencies and our clients saying, hey, I've just tried to set up a campaign and optimize it for conversions, and it just isn't working. And at that moment, I realized, they've started trialing it already. So Facebook have obviously started preparing to roll out their reaction to iOS 14. Then we've basically been spending since then doing it for clients and doing it for agencies that we work with to do their advertising. And we've gotten quite good at it. I say we, Astra's gotten quite good at that process. And so we've started to realize that we probably can share some of that and save a lot of headaches and a lot of knowledge-based articles being read over hours and hours like we did. And that's kind of what's brought us here, I guess, if you want to take it from there, Astra.
Yeah, so the key introduction of people, it's great for consumers, but marketers, this one not so great. iOS 14 comes with Apple's app tracking and transparency policy, which is designed just to reduce data leaks, make sure their customers feel secure, that their data is not being shared all over the world, and that people can't hone in on them and individualize advertising. So because of that, we're going to see a huge reduction in the things that we can see in the back end of platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn and Google, because people are now going to be auto opted out of tracking. At the moment, you can auto unelect yourself to be tracked by these third-party cookies, but when it rolls out, which is any point within the next 6 days, as you said, Pat, they just announced their new iPhone, and historically, they don't wait more than 7 days after a product release to roll out the software. So it's really imminent now. We're expecting that to come in and take effect, so we could start seeing these reductions in reporting, targeting limitations, and basically a reduction in conversions and ROAS over the next 6 days. So it's pretty big.
Interesting. So Astra and Jason, is there a it seems like there is like a global trend going on right now to just more and more privacy that's happening, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago where people were just like, I don't care about my information, everything is out there. That pendulum has certainly been swinging. And first of all, the first question is that what you're seeing over in the UK and in Europe? And secondly, what's spurring Apple to do this? Do you have any insight as to why they're doing this with their new software?
Yes, I think obviously off the back of the Cambridge Analytica scandal, Jason were discussing just before we came on the call how Jason actually looked at all the information that was held about him and was surprised that companies had so much information about him.
Wow.
So off the back of that, people have obviously done their research and realized that, wow, this third party can see how much I'm earning and where I live and where my kids go to school, and serve me really targeted ads based on that. And I mean, it's a little bit like spying. People feel uncomfortable with it. So off the back of that, lots and lots of companies are really pushing transparency with data. And obviously there's been legislation put in place. I know over here in Europe, we've got GDPR. You guys, I know California's been really stringent on this. So in order for these big platforms like Facebook, Google, LinkedIn to abide by these new laws, they have to start pushing this stuff out, and in order to retain their customers as well, because we want to make them feel secure and safe and want them to keep coming back, essentially. So yeah, it's really being felt over here, I think, especially, well, it's all sort of hinging on this iOS 14 rollout. It's a bit of a calm before the storm at the moment, I think, but the next 6 days is going to be really tense, particularly in marketing.
Interesting.
Yeah. From my perspective, I come at it from two angles. One is we own an advertising agency. So our clients that love to do digital advertising, the targeting's just been phenomenal. The information that's out there, it's been a really good tool for us to laser focus our advertising. But as a consumer and someone that takes off the advertising cap, it's scary what's going on. The collection of data that's out there, and what's even bigger than that is how governments are hacking into systems and stealing information. It's just not the kid in the basement anymore that hacked into your website. I mean, you're talking about this as a global threat to a certain extent. So it's nice to see a lot of these manufacturers and software providers taking this seriously now.
Yeah, I think there's examples now just on that, like in Australia, I think that the police are looking at trying to get involved in social media accounts and being able to look at people's social media data and edit it and look at that for crime. It's like the whole thing has now been blown out into, you remember when we were just like sharing pictures with friends of cats like that?
Yeah.
It used to have such an innocence to it that it just doesn't have anymore. And now people are very aware as well. Like, I think the big difference here is that they'll get a notification that says, hey, you don't have to give any data. And what's the advantage? What's the advantage to the user? Oh, well, I'll get slightly better tailored ads. So a lot of people don't care about that. As a marketer, I do want tailored ads, but a lot of people do not care. It's like, okay, fine. I don't want to give those guys anything for free. Why would I do that? I mean, we do get like, in the case of Facebook, we will, and all the apps actually, there is a little bit of like text you can put in to say the reason we want your data is because we want to give you tailored ads, but it's not big, and it's going to be hard to sell to sell the reason for having their data when you've just had this big warning sign saying, hey, these guys are trying to take your data. It's going to be a massive drop off for all Apple devices, which it's a big portion of the market. Like, you think about how many people got iPhones, it's massive. So yeah, when is it? Ashley, you were saying when it's going to come out. It's soon, right? It's in the next few days.
Yeah, so in the next 6 days, usually a week after their product launch.
Jason, you said that this is going to impact advertisers. What is that going to look like? What's going to happen when we go in and say we want to get a campaign up and running? And what's going to be the feedback we get on that? Is it just going to be limited in terms of targeting? Is the audience going to be reduced? Like, what could people expect?
For us here in the UK.
Sorry, you broke up a little bit, I think, Astra. Are you back with us? Yeah.
Me?
Yeah. We didn't hear.
Sorry. Yeah. No, he directed the question at you. I was just going to see if you filmed. But yeah, we're going to see, essentially, we can no longer collect data from iOS 14 devices, which means any third-party targeting that relies on tracking information across websites and across browsers is going to be reduced. So we're going to see smaller audiences, whether that's demographics or whether that's lookalike audiences, our custom audiences, or even retargeting audiences. So that's one of the key things. We're also going to see the removal of a lot of identifiable data, which means we'll no longer be able to report on the breakdown of gender, age, placement, region. We're no longer able to really hone in on those people. So reporting restrictions, ad targeting limitations, and reduced audiences are really the key things that are going to happen here.
Okay.
So from an education education perspective, if we're looking at the advertiser, it's going to change the game, as you're saying. The expectation prior to this happening was a much wider net, and now much narrower. I mean, what does that mean in terms of? I mean, I would imagine from an expenditure standpoint, does that mean a lot of education training on your part to kind of just let businesses, clients know that the game has changed a little bit, and so therefore, industry standards are changing, your expectations might need to change too. That doesn't necessarily mean you throw less dollars at it. I would imagine that's gonna be a big process for you.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, exactly. If clients are, understand the tech side of things and why this is happening, we've spoken to a lot who do understand iOS 14 and the implications of that, but also you get other clients who don't understand it, haven't really read about it, and all they're going to see is their ROAS dropping off, their conversions reducing, and they're going to translate that as, okay, so I'm still spending X amount on my ads, but I'm not seeing the return on it anymore. Is this a worthwhile investment? And we as marketers then don't have the data to justify it and say, actually, yes, it is. This is what we've proved, that this amount of money achieves X amount of conversions, because we're essentially losing probably more than 50% of our audience in iOS 14 users. And obviously iOS 14 isn't just mobile phones, it's tablets, it's Apple TV, you know, it spans across all of the technological devices where people see and engage with ads.
Yeah. So what are you doing, Jason and Astra? What are you doing then? Obviously, you knew this was coming. What are you doing to try to stay ahead of this, to educate your customers so that when this happens, you know, and this light switch goes on or off, maybe is a better way of saying it, it's not like shock. I mean, what's been your process to stay ahead of this, educate, communicate, get the information into your clients' hands? Because obviously, like you had said, Astra, your clientele varies. There's some that are going to probably be more savvy, then there's others who are kind of like, I haven't been following this. What is this all about?
Yeah, so with existing clients that we already have, we've been preparing them from sort of May. We've been preparing, letting them know the steps they need to take in order to mitigate these, managing their expectations. And with new clients, Jason's our marketing manager, so he does a lot of the onboarding process, and Jason's been having to manage their expectations from the off and set up campaigns in a whole new way, like we've never experienced before. So there's been a lot of learning on our part as well, and back and forth, and it generally takes a lot longer, and people can't always understand why you need to do certain things to mitigate them. So it's definitely been a challenge, but I think they're coming round now, and well, they have to. There's no choice after 6 days. So.
Yeah, I think the other point to it is, like, when you come to any kind of campaign, there's some clients come to you like when you go to a doctor and you know exactly what you need, you know what drug you need to take, and it's like you come to the doctor and it's like, let the doctor do the work, because maybe you don't need that drug, and in this case it's maybe you don't need that channel to get what you want from this. Okay. Some people come with a problem and just say, hey, we need more leads, you just let me know what you need to do that. So in both cases they require a different approach, right? And it's like the biggest question I'm seeing is, I used to spend £5,000 on Facebook, and now all this has happened. Why should I spend £5,000 on Facebook now? Like, is that not a weaker channel? And I'd say that in the end, Facebook are doing more than any other channel to rectify and get ready for this. They've created, and I always get the algorithm wrong, it's AEM, which is aggregated event measurement. And they've created all of these like different user interfaces to make sure you're prioritizing your events and you're ready for these changes and the way that you optimize the campaign. Whereas LinkedIn and Google haven't done that. So in some cases they're being more proactive, and perhaps, you know, with that there's going to be software that will hopefully improve how your ads are then targeted. But yeah, nevertheless, there is going to be a drop off. I think in the end it comes down to what channel is right for you, you know, at that particular moment, which is, it feels like a it depends answer, but it does matter on the messaging and when you're messaging them and the timing, because retargeting will still work. It will just need to be timed differently, because you've only got a 7-day window now, whereas before you could retarget, you know, for days and days. Like, was it 28 days you used to have before, Astra, and it's reduced down? You're on mute at the moment, sorry.
We could attribute conversions over a 28-day window, but now our maximum window is going to be, as you say, 7 days, Jason. So we have 3 times as little data than we did before.
Yeah. So it changes a lot how you use these tools. The tools are still there, and I think now we have to think about, okay, what are we using each channel for, and then what's the end goal? I think I've been guilty of this a lot as well, of knowing that I can always kind of cold target people, so I haven't been spending as much time at the bottom of my funnel or the middle of my funnel. I haven't spent as much time nurturing people that are already part of my ecosystem and building them into lists that I can then depend on as first party contacts. And I think that's going to be the biggest change. Now you're going to have to focus on the people that are already in your CRM and nurture them. That's going to be the drive here. You can't keep going to the cold lists and the cold advertising, because it's going to be, well, less. You can have less reporting on it, and you're not going to be targeting as well as you were before. So that, for me, that's the biggest change, I think, from this thing.
Jason and Astra, you bring up something kind of interesting, though, in talking about in the future and where to target. Guys, in your opinion, is this going to mean maybe a rethinking of branding and the importance of that top funnel, messaging that, we were so used to tracking everything that we would really focus on the mid to end of the funnel, right? Just tracking them and converting. Not paying too much attention up on top here. Does this mean this could potentially change and switch back over to more of a branding kind of effort?
Yeah, I think so.
Definitely, it's going to be somewhere between the two. So our detailed targeting is going to be massively reduced. So say we're top of the funnel, we're trying to get brand awareness out there, rather than say you're a clothing brand, you've got an e-commerce website. Rather than targeting people with an interest in online shopping, who like jeans, shoes, t-shirts, whatever, we're more likely to see like a mass migration to non-detailed targeting. So maybe you just target men for menswear, you just target women for women's wear, you target a certain age range. We're no longer going to be able to hone in as specifically on people's interests. So it'll either go that way, or depending on what you need at the time, what channels you need, and your KPIs for your business, it's going to go the other way, whereby you really hone in on that end of the funnel. You're tracking thank you URLs and purchases, and just basically the revenue side of things. So I think it's going to be one or the other, and there's not really much room anymore for those middle of the funnel actions on the website, unfortunately.
Interesting.
Mm.
So Jason and Astra, what are you then? What are you saying to your clients now? Okay, they're coming to you, they kind of understand it. You've given them the speech about, hey, let's set your expectations. What could marketers do now how are you coaching them? What are you saying to them, in order to kind of push them along?
Well, in some ways, it's a little bit like we are adding value in taking them through the process. That's one gain, right? Like, whereas if they, in some cases, there are some channels where the user interface is really good, and you can run campaigns quite easily. We've got clients that do boost a lot of their posts, and they can do some of it, and sometimes you feel they think they know a lot about it, and maybe they don't need you, but here there's a lot now that we need to tell them to help them through. So I think we'll win some work in that respect, in that we can now take them through a little bit of a technical part where they've got a transition to be ready for this. Secondly, in their reporting, right, they've lost a lot of their reporting in the sense that they'd always do it perhaps in the ads manager, and that's where they get a lot of their answers. We now need to look at building out UTM tags a lot more than we ever did before. That's where we can really count some of these conversions, is in Google Analytics, and finding out which pages people came to from which channels. So I think we can sell. There's new opportunities with every change. There's obviously opportunity, and I think there's opportunities where we can add value as well as the original campaigns. But in terms of the campaigns, I think they just need to be more aware of the limitations, but not let that be the reason for them to not advertise, because their competitors are still going to advertise. Everyone's not going to stop advertising. And by the way, Android users are untouched by this. So that's a massive part of the market that still can be targeted in all the same ways with all of the same campaigns as before. So I think it's just about balancing kind of what you're focusing on, really. But yeah, there's a lot still to work with. What would you say, Astra?
Yeah, I mean, it's formed a huge part of our onboarding process, and before even talking strategy now, half the time we'll just say, look, we need to get this done, it's paramount, then we can look at the strategy, because we need to discuss it in a bit more detail. I mean, you can focus on one conversion event at the top of your event slots now, so it's no longer a case of, I want to track emails and phone clicks and purchases. We have to decide on one and decide the best strategy for that. So we've actually created a guide. I think Pat's seen it. I don't know about Brian and Kurt if you guys have, but we've been sending that out to a lot of our clients and educating them, as you say, talking them through what they need to do, why they need to do it, how it's going to affect their ads, but why it's also a good thing. As Jason said, just because this is happening and it seems like a negative, big red rainy cloud over our heads, Facebook is still one of the most reliable and most effective ways to advertise your brand. So it's just reassuring them that, yes, these things are negative, but actually it's still a worthwhile investment for your business.
And when I look at the two of you, it's like when you talk through, you guys are definitely consultants.
Yep.
And I think more than ever, you know, your clients need you, you know, because now and I'm talking Jason, Astra, you have to work harder and smarter to guide them. And it was interesting, Jason, when you're with new business, you're probably doing more of the new onboarding, as you alluded to earlier. And Astra, you had mentioned you're working with some of the existing clients. Yeah, I would imagine, and again, I don't know, but it's like with maybe some of the newer clients, if you're onboarding newer clients and it's more new to them, perhaps the education process is a little easier because you don't know what you don't know. Whereas Astra, when you're working with a client that has had those expectations, and the minute you take something away that they're accustomed to having, their whole world blows up. So I can see, you know, how it's very different depending on who the client is, but also your role is I think probably become even more crucial because you've had to get smarter and work a lot harder.
That's it. We're sort of the point of contact and the knowledge base for a lot of our clients who don't have time to learn or read about this stuff. So we have had to take a bit more of a consulting role and take on board the expectations. And as you say, a lot of reporting, as we know, people operate their business on quarterly. So suddenly this quarter is going to look really bad compared to last quarter. And if we start comparing those data, that people are going to want to know why there's been, I don't know, 50% less conversions in Q4 than Q3. And so it is a lot of expectation management and trying not to we all want to give the best for our clients and receive, you know, good reviews for them, get them good business. So we're trying to keep them happy, but at the same time, we don't want to give them hope that's not there.
I just hope that for me, the big one is you've got Black Friday coming up. I just hope that people can get ready for that and get prepared and get your Facebook ads, which may be seasonal, ready for these things and get your AEM set up. Because when there's little things like when you make a change to the AEM in Facebook, the aggregated event measurement, it takes up to 72 days and it pauses all of the campaigns.
72 hours.
72 hours, sorry. And that's like massive. If you don't know that until you get to the point, you've lost Black Friday. Do you know what I mean? There's so many things people need to know about this to get ready for it. And if you prepare, you're fine. But if you don't, it could be the difference between you hitting your targets or not. So, yeah, so it's an interesting one. And it is now's the time to act. If not, then last week was. Just on the point that you made earlier about how do we then kind of market ourselves now, like how do we help people guide them through it? I think this has meant that leads are a lot more valuable than they ever were before. And the nurturing part after you've got that lead in is massive now, because you just need to do everything you can with the leads that you've got then. And once you've got that email address, really make that work for you. Once they become they're in your database and become part of your community. I think that's a massive part of this, is that now you can't rely on just generating leads after leads after leads. You've got to nurture the ones you've got.
Jason and Astra, this is really, really interesting. And it's really just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be a lot more changes happening here. You know, you mentioned Google and LinkedIn haven't done this yet. It's probably going to come with them as well. So get ready to write some more white papers, because I could see that definitely coming down. Guys, thank you for being on the podcast. We're going to give you guys the last word. So Jason, Astra, what do you want to say to everybody out there? The mic is yours.
I mean, get ready, be prepared. You can no longer react quickly to marketing trends. You need to give yourself time to plan in content, plan in promotions, get prepared, educate yourselves, verify your domain, configure your events, and get it set up, and do it within the next 6 days.
I think we'll obviously send out a version of our guide to anyone that wants it, and have I'm sure we can make that link that somewhere wherever you're listening to this or watching it. But I think you just need to do the preparation and you'll be fine. And this isn't the end of this. You know, Facebook has acted and reacted quickly to this and made sure that they're covered. So will the other channels. There will be new opportunities with this change, as there always is when there's change. So yeah, I think, just as Astra said, preparation.
You know, preparation's key, no doubt. But you know what? Also call your providers and the thought leaders. That's really the value you bring to the table, as most people are trying to figure things out. Well, you're one phone call away. to have a thought leader who can walk you through the process and make sure it's set up properly. So kudos to you guys for getting out ahead of it and being thought leaders.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, thanks for being on the podcast, guys. We have that white paper ebook document that both Astra and Jason were talking about. It's fabulous. It's great. It's a great piece. We'll put a link in the show description. Everybody, thanks for being on the podcast. Got to come back again.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Kurt.